We begin with breaking news tonight out of Times Square. 2 people were shot this afternoon, including a child. Let's get right to CBS 2's Kieran Dillon. She's live at what is still an active scene. Kieran.
Jessica, Times Square has been completely blocked off after this double shooting. Let me give you a live look behind me right now because this is very much an active scene. Now, people are not allowed in this middle plaza area, and in the distance, you can see ambulances along with dozens of NYPD officers. I've also overheard an officer here on the scene telling people that many of the businesses in this area have been evacuated. Now, police say 2 people were struck in a shots-fired incident around 5 this afternoon near 44th Street and 7th Avenue. After the shooting, video shows people running from the scene in a panic. One of the victims is an adult female. The other victim is a female child under the age of 5. Right now, what led to this shooting or any possible motivations remain unknown. So again, this is a developing story, but 2 people, including a child under the age of 5, have been shot here in Times Square. Their conditions are unknown at this time. Police are currently searching for a male suspect. Anyone with information is asked to call police. We are expecting, Jessica, more details from police around 7:30 this evening. And of course, when we have them, we will bring them to you. We're live tonight.
All right, guys. So you don't have to wait. Well, it's actually after 7:30, but we're going to get into this, man. Who has been chronicling the downward spiral, the descent into hell that New York City has plummeted into since George Floyd's death in Minneapolis? I can't believe they let this beautiful city turn into this because a man with enough fentanyl in his system to kill a horse with a criminal record longer than a CVS receipt who just hopped out of a clown car with a bunch of people who wouldn't even testify during his trial. They let that guy's death in police custody turn one of the best cities in the world into a cesspit. And you know what the mayor's going to say.
If you said to one of my kids, oh, you shouldn't go on the subway, it's not safe, they would laugh you out of the room. They would tell you you clearly couldn't be a real New Yorker.
So, TMZ has the skinny as usual. Times Square, 2 women and a toddler shot. God. Law enforcement sources have clarified the number of victims and the severity of injuries, which have been getting reported vastly differently across the board. We're told, yes, a dispute between several males. And listen, one person in the chat, is there one person? Just hit 1. I need to find at least one person who thinks that the shooter is not a black male. One person. Just one. Not that the shooter may turn out to be a neo-Nazi, a fascist, a alt-righter, a Proud Boy, or it may even be a Latin king. I don't know. Maybe a Nieta. I don't know. But as of now, as you've heard it, a dispute between several males along Broadway resulted in someone firing. I need one person that will sit here and tell me that they think that this was somebody other than a black male. Because oftentimes what happens is I get called a coon, I get called a sellout, and then I tell y'all it was a shooting, and y'all just assume that it was a black person. And it's like, wait a second. Every time they say there's a shooting, or every time you hear there's a shooting, everybody just automatically assumes that it was a black person that did it. But then they're so quick to, you have unconscious bias, you're a coon, you hate yourself, you're a racist. There was a shooting down the street. Oh, God. Black on black crimes out of control. Well, wait a second. You don't even know who did the shooting. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. If you're new, take the $5 challenge. So we're told, yes, a dispute between several males along Broadway resulted in someone firing on Broadway. What's my man's name? George Benson. The great George Benson had that song, Broadway. I love that song. If you ever get a chance, listen to that George Benson song, Broadway. One of the great black entertainers, one of the great forgotten black crooners of the 70s and early 80s. On Broadway. One good line won't even shine your shoes. On Broadway. So, a dispute between several males along Broadway resulted in someone firing, which hit the toddler once in the leg, a 23-year-old female in the thigh, and a 43-year-old female in the left foot. And how many stories do I do where sisters getting shot in broad daylight? No other group of women, and I'm already saying it's sisters, but it could be passersby. It could be a white one. Let me hold off on the victims. I'm not gonna, because this is Times Square. If this was a residential area, I would be pretty sure who the victims was. But since this is Times Square, let me hold off on that. Pause, step back, moment of levity. Don't even assume who the victims are, because Times Square, we've all been to Times Square. Sometimes, some of y'all, that's the only place in New York you'll go. You ain't going into Jamaica. You ain't going into East New York. You ain't going into the ungentrified parts of Harlem. You ain't going into the South Bronx. You know? But, yeah. So it could have been either. The victims and we know stray bullets, so we'll hold off on the victims. Our sources tell us they were all unintended targets. Are all expected to live. That's a tongue twister. Well, maybe this, I don't know. All are expected to live. That's another big thing. How many kids, we just talked about this. How many kids get shot? And now the world's getting to see what Blackistan sees every day. This is how little kids get shot all the time. A dispute between a group of men leads to some kid who's sleeping, dying. Or some kid making a TikTok video in his living room, dying from some stray bullet. So that was obvious footage. I mean, who wouldn't think that there's cameras in Times Square? That was video of one of the cameras. We sure there's other tons of cameras that caught it that haven't been released yet. The most disconcerting part, besides somebody trying to gun down a lady and a kid in the middle of the day, is the fact that the person who did this has not been caught yet. Welcome to Blackistan, you guys. This is probably a good thing that the rest of the world gets to see how black people live. How law-abiding black citizens have to deal with this crap. Kids getting hit by stray bullets. Women getting hit by stray bullets. Of course, no suspect in custody. Now, here's the one difference. People will talk to the police down here. Other races, they don't believe in no snitching crap. But they don't have to live in the neighborhood with these guys either. So it's easy to not believe in the no snitching crap when you don't have to live in the neighborhood where the criminal, in the city where there's no bail, where the guy who shot up the place is going to be, you're going to bump into him in the grocery store the next day. You know what I'm saying? Like, so no bail in New York. So I got to give the black people a little break, considering that they have to live around these people. And I'm already assuming that it's a black person, because I know it is. It's always. You want to see the gun memorial for New York? Everyone who's died this year in New York, to see why I may have this unconscious bias or maybe cooning. This is actually New York State, but from Buffalo to Rochester to Albany to Troy to Poughkeepsie to Newburgh, it's all the same stuff in New York. So let's go through, let's see everyone who's gotten killed in New York since the last murder. So the last murder was the other day. This Abasad Essafui, African, but whatever. Now, New York State is about, 19% black or something like that. It's not a lot of black people in New York, considering they're not the biggest group in New York. But look at the gun. Well, this is everyone who's killed by guns in New York. The Dior Harris. God. Such a small portion of the population makes up, what would you say, 80, 90% of the gun memorial? 95% of all the gun violence victims? I mean, this is a small percentage of the population. That's basically virtually all of the murder victims from guns. And many of these are in the city, New York City, where the gun laws are extremely strict. They can't get no stricter. I mean, just think about this, man. This is a small part of the population, man. This is an extremely small part of the population that's making up the majority of the murder victims. An extremely small part of the population, relatively. And they're damn near all of it. And how many of y'all tired of this black and brown shit? Brown people are doing fine. So far, I've seen probably 10 brown people, maybe. And maybe 15 white people, maybe not even that much. But everybody else has been black. So when you hear there's a shooting in New York, this is why you, and everybody, when you hear a shooting anywhere, we automatically assume that it was a black person that was shot and a black person that was the shooter. You don't see Black Lives Matter in Times Square, do you? So we know that it wasn't no white man. You don't see it. CNN's not covering this. I checked CNN. CNN did a blurb on it, but they ain't covering it. Think about this. This state has a very, very small black population. By no means the majority. No metric. Even in the city, there are 27%, 25% of the population, even in New York City, where this is probably their population center. And it's hard to feel sorry for New Yorkers knowing that they vote Democrat, blindly vote Democrat, and they'll vote for it. They're gonna, if the election was today, they would reelect de Blasio. If the election was held right now, with this shooting as the last memory, with all the attacks on the train, all the attacks on people walking down the street, the shootings doubled from last year, which was the worst year in a long time. They doubled that this year so far. With double-digit shootings every day. Now it's coming down to Times Square. They'd still elect de Blasio. Who believes that? Because Democrats are usually like, they're very loyal. They're loyal to a fault. Like, yeah, you don't have anything like a rhino. You know how they talk about rhinos, Republicans in name only. Republicans that, you know, switch sides and play the fence or hedge their bets or, you know, do treasonous and traitorous things to their own party. Play both sides. You don't have anything like that in the Democratic Party. There's no dino Democrat in name only. Democrats are extremely loyal. No matter what happened, and I don't care if people are dying, kids are dying, the cities are turning into cesspools and hellholes, they'll still vote Democrat every time. So it's hard to feel sorry for these people. We had the guy, what was that? I did the story, the guy who was coming to the ball game the other day. He was, I mean, it was a couple weeks ago. He was shot. No, it was about a month ago, a couple months ago. He was from Kansas City or something, from somewhere out there, and he was going to a ball game, and he was down there, and he got shot by a stray bullet. I think I did that story, but it's so many stories of a lot of the crime is coming down to Times Square, and this may be a big one, but it started to come down to Times Square a while ago, and people weren't really paying attention. We were here, but I guess now it's got everybody's attention.
Horse from Kansas was in the wrong place at the wrong time and took a bullet. Police say 44-year-old Chris Ruby was walking down the street when he passed by two men who were fighting. One of the men opened fire. Ruby was struck in the shoulder. Police say he was not the intended target. Ruby is now in stable condition. The man told one New York TV station he went to the Mets-Phillies game, was heading back to his hotel when the shooting happened.
So yeah, man, I mean, it's been going on for a while. It's only going to get worse. Like, there's nothing to stop it. They're emptying the jails in New York. Criminals commit crime. That's why when criminals are in jail, crime goes down. When you stop putting criminals in jail, crime goes up. And the only people that seems like rocket science to is Democrats. Everyone else seems to get that. You lock up criminals, crime goes down. Regular citizens can walk the streets without getting clubbed upside the head by a stranger, or slashed across the face by a stranger, or hit with a stray bullet from a stranger. You make it so there's no bail, so criminals can get out the same day they commit the crime, or the next day at the very least. You say you're not going to arrest your way out of the situation. No, the problem is not the criminal, it's the gun. You put the focus on the gun and not the criminal. As if the gun is just going to be like this is a cartoon or something. The gun go grow legs and just walk down. Put the focus on the gun and not the criminal. And you get this stuff. I can't feel sorry for these people now that I think about it. And there'll be more of this. Much more of this. Like this airhead, Ana Navarro. She says, this afternoon so far, there was a shooting in a mall in South Florida and another in Times Square. In other words, just another Saturday in America. The time for gun reform is now. Actually, it was decades ago. But some of our elected officials are too chicken shit. Well, listen, Anna, it's not the gun. It's the criminal. And everybody knows that because in every city, and it's not even just the criminal. It's a black problem, a community. The black community has to step up. The gun violence in America would be a normal, like any other developed country, if it wasn't for the black population. We make up 75% of the victims of gunshots in this country, and 75% of them the shooters and the killers. It used to be 50%. It used to be, you used to see that 1350 going around, but since 2020, it's up to 75. 75% of the, 13% of the population, and our percentage of the population is going down. We're now 12% because all the illegals coming in, legal immigrants. So we're now 12% of the population. And we make up 75% of the victims and shooters. And Anna Navarro's talking about guns. There are towns all over this country where it's nothing but white people and everybody got a gun on the dashboard of their pickup truck or in the back window of their pickup truck or in a holster visible on their hip. Everybody got 10, 15 guns. And there's no murders. Unless somebody kills their wife or some woman kills her husband. And every year or two, it may be a shooting at a bar or something. But very little crime. Then you go to these cities and it's 400, 500, 600, 700 murders a year. In cities, one city. And the gun memorial looks just how I showed you. It looks just like that. In Baltimore, in Philadelphia, in Chicago, in Birmingham, in St. Louis. The gun memorial looks just the same as it does in New York. All black people. And she's talking about guns. This is a problem that the black community only can fix. Only the black community can fix this problem. This woman says, a 4-year-old mother shot in broad daylight in Times Square today. New York City can't continue like this. If Mayor de Blasio insists on tying the hands of the police, we need the feds to step in. And watch Biden end up sending the feds into New York. But when Trump did that to Chicago, when he talked about that, first when he talked about it, it was racism. It was racism. Because you know what this means, the feds. They're coming in and you know who's doing the shooting. You know which neighborhoods the shooting is being done in. So yes, if you bring in the feds, yes, you're targeting black criminals who happen to be black people. You're targeting black gang members, which they already have in New York. They locked up a bunch of black gang members the other day, but in New York, but you're talking, if you're going to end gun violence in New York, just as if you saw that gun memorial, you know who's doing the killing. You know who's doing the shooting. You know that if the feds come into New York, who they're going to target. They're going to target black criminals and black gang members. And you won't hear a word about it from the criminals and the gang members. You know who's going to be complaining about that? Law-abiding black citizens, the black clergy, black people on college campuses. They'll be whining about that and bitching and moaning about that. They targeting black. And that's why the problem will never end. Because law-abiding black citizens always moan and bitch whenever law enforcement takes on black gangsters and black criminals. Because somebody, These guys shoot cops. These guys shoot at cops. Cops gonna have to shoot some of these guys. Some of these guys gonna have to get killed. Some of these killers and shooters are gonna have to get killed by cops. And that's just the way it goes. And law-abiding black citizens are gonna be bitching and moaning about it. And you know who else is gonna be bitching and moaning about it? White liberals, who will be secretly thanking God that the feds have come in to clean up this godforsaken cesspool of a city that New York City has become. But publicly, the liberals will be whining and bitching about it. Every time a black criminal or a black gang member has the cuffs put on his wrist too tight, be a bunch of white liberals down at the police station protesting. But when they go home, they'll be breathing a sigh of relief because the streets are safer. Get in the comment section, hit the like button, subscribe. Peace. I'm out.